So, the whole premise of this podcast is about self-development, self-empowerment. Make sure you're not talking too quietly because I don't know how to. Well, we can check it how the audio is going to pick up because it's back there and I didn't.
Is
bring
it on
my
the?
mic.
It's on the camera. It's just the camera.
It's on the
not the. There's no microphone.
So I have a microphone for my laptop, but
Okay.
I think this will be good. Maybe we should just kind of angle a little bit this way, so your voice is going that way. You know?
Okay.
So the whole premise of this podcast is self-development, self-empowerment, and encouraging people to take the challenges on that come their way, and to provide like inspiration through people's journeys, sharing their journey, and then also through talking about different modalities, that have worked for them.
Okay.
Because I went through literally 15 years of depression.
Yeah.
Probably longer than that. And so, and I grew up on a farm and just never really knew how to get out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's to provide inspiration and ideas of things that people can do, like meditation, yoga, different stuff like that, to get out of the uncomfortable spot that they might be in,
Or to put yourself in an uncomfortable position and move through it.
That, yeah. But if you're stuck,
to get out of the stuckness, the stagnancy.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been there. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us? So this is Danielle Matson. This is my first time doing video besides the one with Mike, but I haven't published that one yet. So getting a little adjusted to it, but welcome back to the Master of Zilch podcast. I'm your host, Trev Montalvan, and today we are joined by Danielle Matson. She is part of the, for lack of a better term, conscious community down here in the St. Pete area. And we just met at different events, and I had a conversation with her as I've had with a lot of people down here in this community, and she was open to coming on and talking to you guys and just sharing her story and her journey and what has helped her to kind of move through some of the challenges in her life. And so without further ado, Danielle, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here, and then if you want to share where they can find you, if they want to contact you with more questions?
Yeah, so I'm from St. Pete, actually. I was born here. And I've been here my whole life. I left a couple of times, but always kind of circled back. And yeah, I always kind of felt like I was different at a young age. I was very emotional and in tune with nature, but kind of didn't really have the tools to hone in on that. And so there were a lot of times when I was kind of not backlash, because it was very, my parents knew that I was sensitive, but it was kind of oh, you're too emotional, there's too much going on here. So that kind of caused me to shut down. And in recent years, I've just kind of been on this spiritual journey, this spiritual experience, unlocking different gifts and coming back to different elements of myself and remembering who I am. And so I'm finding that my emotions are actually my superpower and really allow me to tap into different areas with different people and relate from a heart space, heart-centered space. And, we live in this multi-dimensional reality. There's so many layers. There's so many aspects of existence, and it feels really, it's exciting. I'm excited now to uncover it, even in the moments of despair, when I'm feeling these depths of emotion. I'm yes, bring it on. I want to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think not stuffing them down or running away from them is the answer, because whatever's coming up wants to come up, and if you suppress it, it's going to come up in some form or another.
Yeah, that's it. And a lot of times, like, we have these emotions and we feel them, and in this culture and in this society, we're kind of told not to express them.
Yeah.
So then it gets stored in the body, and like it manifests in different ways, physically, and physical ailments, or just like, or mental stuckness, emotional stuckness, like depression, anxiety, or any kind of different pains. And it's like those emotions want to move through. Life wants us to feel those things, and on the other end of emotions that might be challenging or really difficult or really painful, it's like pure liberation.
Totally.
So I'm finding that allowing myself to really feel to the depths of that expands my heart. It opens my heart to more love.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I meant to look at, and I forgot, your human design. I looked it up. You're 2'5", so, but you also are an emotional authority, right? Do you remember?
I'm not too
Okay.
familiar, but I feel like you know a lot more about that than I do.
I'm trying to incorporate it more, so we're going to go with the fact that you are, because I'm like 99%
It feels
sure
right
you
for
are.
me.
Yeah. So the emotional authority, you want to definitely, as an emotional authority, you definitely don't want to suppress the emotions, because that's your authority. So by working through those emotions, you have your up waves and your down waves.
Yeah.
And then you make decisions when you reach that like level place. If you're too much on a high or too much on a low, and you make decisions, there's consequences, basically.
It's like reactive versus like finding the balance first.
Totally. There was a woman that she lives in Georgia, but she's come down and visited multiple times this community. She and I were talking after Kirtan. Kirtan is something that I can share. I have posts about it on my Instagram, but she was talking about how she's an emotional authority manifester, and she was saying how like she was going to move down here last year, and then decided not to. But the reason she decided she was going to was she was on an emotional high, and her emotional authority, like, you don't want to make decisions on that. So once she got down here and she started to make the moves to make that move, she realized, like, as the wave came back down, she's like, this isn't right. So she ended up going back to Georgia. So
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there's definitely been an element of that in my life. Like, I used to really kind of make emotionally reactive decisions versus like experiencing something, feeling what it feels like, and then like waiting a period of time for that dust to kind of settle. And like, because there's like there's the logical body and there's the emotional body, and it's like finding that balance in between the two of them.
yeah.
And it can be, I found it to be kind of difficult for me sometimes, because I'm so like in my emotional like feminine essence, so I just want to flow, I just want to like be with that. And a lot of times I'm finding now at this point in my life, like I feel very balanced. I have found the tools, and I have like a ritual and a practice that I do regularly that helps me stay balanced. But there have definitely been times when it's like, I've made decisions just based off of those high or low points, and it doesn't feel like resonant.
So this is a perfect opportunity for you to share some of those things that you've done that has helped you to find more of that center, so that you don't have as much of those results.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I started practicing yoga regularly. I was practicing mostly hot yoga, which I mean, any kind of yoga is amazing, but like for me, the hot yoga was really like, you're so hot that you have there's no opportunity to not be present, because like you kind of might pass out.
Sure. Sure.
Like, so you have to like breathe and be with your body, and like and the sweating and the cleansing of the toxins is amazing. But just like, that was my practice for a long time. I was going to a hot yoga class like almost every day. And that I was like in a kind of a depressive state at the time, so it really helped me be more in tune with my body and what I'm feeling, and like recognize the emotional cues that my body would be giving me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was life changing. Now I have like an ebb and flow with yoga. I don't practice it as regularly, but I do have other practices. I've been really sitting in meditation a lot, and specifically tea meditations, which there's a way, there are several different kinds of ways that you can practice tea meditations, but the way that I practice is the way of the Tao, and it's very intentional. Everything has a meaning, everything is purposeful, and which is like, it's how I like to live my life in general. But it's nice to sit in a meditation and have something to hold, because sometimes you can sit in a meditation and your mind is like, okay, like what am I doing? I'm just sitting here, da da da.
Yeah.
If you have something that you're holding and like doing, it's not taking away from the experience, but it's like a physical thing, you know, that you can kind of anchor into as you like. I like to hold it to my heart space and just like remind myself, okay, come back to the heart, like what's happening in the heart space. And so since I've incorporated that into my life, I like to do that in the mornings and kind of set the tone for my day. And it's been really helpful in just connecting with myself and connecting with spirit and just listening. You know, I ask myself a lot of questions, like what am I feeling? And I listen to what my heart tells me that I'm feeling, what's moving through me, because you wake up and it could be different every day, you know, things happen throughout the day. It's just like, it can shift from moment to moment, and especially living in that flow state, it's like allowing the energy to just move through you and like move you. It's you know, so it feels good to have like a solid grounded intention for the day and listen to what I'm feeling so that I can like incorporate that. It's like, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to move about my day? And a lot of times it's kind of, I just let spirit guide me as it wants to, as I'm going about my day. But yeah, it's been a really powerful practice for me.
It's called the Way of the Tao.
The Way of the Tao.
I've already brought it up multiple times on previous episodes, but I'm really big on the Tao Te Ching. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it has a lot of really powerful wisdom, and just to live life with intention. You know, everything can be a prayer. This life is a miracle, and I forget that sometimes. It's like it's so easy to speak about it, but like sometimes when I'm in these moments where I feel down or just like life has thrown me a curveball, it's hard to remember. So it feels good to always like, you know, to talk about it and connect and remember, like, yeah, this is why we're here. Like, it's a miracle to just be alive and to experience existence at all. So it's like, how can I love more? That's what life is about, you know. Like, our birthright is to love. Our birthright is to love. Like, we are love. That is source consciousness. That is us.
Right.
So remembering that.
Yeah.
I'm remembering it now.
I actually listen every day after the gym. I go to the gym a lot, and so in the morning. Every day. I'm trying to take days off, but I'm also trying to just go with the flow. And when I wake up and I feel like going, I just go.
That's like a meditation. Almost.
100%.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good practice for the double projection field, like you're 2.5, I'm a 5.2. So that projection field is like definitely working when I'm in the gym. I can feel it, you know. And so it's a good way. It's a good practice every single morning to like just stay rooted in myself, and no matter what that projection field is doing, whatever's happening, like I'm centered and grounded in myself.
Yeah.
But after every single day, I made this a practice. I don't know, maybe at the beginning of this year, that as soon as I leave the gym, when I get in my car, I put on Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Nice. So, and I'll just listen to a verse of that, and it like just, kind of like with your tea ceremony, it like sets the tone for the day. It's pretty great.
Yeah, just being able to call in those connections and and sometimes to listen to other people share their experience or share their wisdom, it's like can help. It's really helpful. Like we all need to be reminding each other of this, because as humans, like things happen, we're here on this earth and we're having these experiences, and it's not always easy to experience these things in our physical body, but our soul is always like, yahoo, like let's go. Like the soul is like, I know what's up. This is a ride, like our human self is like, why? Like I'll just be like crying on the floor. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to feel this. Like
it's tough. It can definitely be challenging. So I was also going to mention, you mentioned hot yoga. This is a funny little side story. My dad I grew up on a farm. He's a farmer, and so he's not as much into all this stuff, but he went out and visited his first cousin who lives out in California, and I believe his uncle was there with him, that guy's dad, and he didn't do the yoga, but they went and did hot yoga.
Your dad did?
My dad did. And I don't think he's a super flexible guy either,
Had he ever done yoga before?
Never.
Okay, so his first yoga class was a hot yoga
Hot yoga.
class. Love it.
And he forgot to put on deodorant.
Nice.
So at a certain point, he was like, I didn't want to mess with anybody anymore, so he left and sat and waited until his cousin got out. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty intense for his first time. I mean,
that's a lot.
He was 60 when he went,
Yeah. A hot yoga class for your first time is definitely an intense experience. I'll be honest, sometimes I'll forget to put on deodorant and I'm just like, screw it. No one knows. I mean, maybe, but if they're smelling me, I'm in my own world. You could be in your own world. It's not about anyone else. It's just but I get it, we have these feelings and these projections and these things that are insecurities and self-conscious feelings to work through.
Well, it might also been that he was tired and
he probably was just too hot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think they drank the night before too, so he was dealing with a hangover and all of that. So,
that sounds bad.
Yeah. And at 60, I mean, it's not like he was 30.
Yeah, I mean, don't put that box around him.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, if your first time ever doing yoga, you're 60.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's intense. Hot yoga is no joke. No. I mean, I've almost passed out a lot, but it's I almost kind of like that point, which sounds kind of psychotic, but I like reaching that point where I feel like I'm about to pass out, and I'm like, no, you can control this with your breath.
Yep.
And I can. I like putting myself in uncomfortable situations that pushing the edge,
Yeah, for sure. But Wayne talks about that in that book, Wayne Dyer, about hot yoga and the fact that when his body is telling him no, and if he can stay centered and grounded, like you're saying with the breath, he comes back to the breath, that it helps him move through it and move through that challenge.
Yeah, and yoga is it teaches a lot about that in that way. You learn so much about yourself and your body and your being just by practicing physically. I was not anticipating learning all of the things that I learned emotionally and mentally by physically working my body in a yoga class. Because you're there with yourself, and if it's a consistent practice, you get to come back to these positions and think how is my body feeling in this today versus yesterday? What kind of factors are contributing to that? And then being in a position that might feel uncomfortable to hold for a long time, and recognizing that I can push my body to if it's not I'm not in pain, it's uncomfortable, but I can do it.
Yeah.
It allows your mind to rewire its neural pathways. So it now is I can be in uncomfortable emotional situations and I can do it.
And not go into fight or flight.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of what Wim Hof is about too. You ever done Wim Hof?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and ice baths and
oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of these these physical modalities that I think are really helpful that we don't even realize how helpful they are until we start doing them.
And doing them consistently, for an extended period of time. This is one of the things that I like to talk about too, is stacking modalities. When you're doing, if you are doing none of them, right, and then you just start doing Wim Hof, definitely better than doing None of them.
Sure.
But if you do a couple of Wim Hof breathing sessions in the morning, then you do a tea ceremony, and then maybe later in the day you have time to do like a high yoga class, and you consistently do that 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, obviously it'd be nice if you did the Wim Hof and the tea ceremony every day, but like when you start to stack those different modalities, like they have like a synergistic, like multiplying effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like every chance that I get, I'm like, right now at least, you know, life is ebbs and flows, but I'm like, do I have a free moment? Okay, I want to be in meditation.
Yeah,
you know, like,
sure.
because all of these things connect us back to our bodies, which connect us back to our emotional selves, and we can build that relationship with ourselves internally, then cultivate that internal world to be exactly how we want it to be, what's aligned with our values, what feels good for us, and then like that's what is projected on the outside, and that's what manifests your external world.
Totally.
So, you know, it's like it really all comes back to that, and sometimes people might think that it's selfish, right? Like there can be like those aspects of if you, for instance, decide to, I don't know, do something else that feels aligned for you versus going to a friend's birthday party or
Sure.
something. But it's ultimately taking care of the self is the number one way.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost, so that everything else can flow from there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if the friend at the birthday party is doing some of this stuff too, they might just realize like she's doing her own thing. Like I'm not going to force her to
Exactly.
do something she doesn't want to do.
Exactly. And it's just trusting what's in alignment, trusting what's in flow. And I think it's really important that we keep coming back to these practices so that we can listen to our bodies. Like it's like society has kind of programmed us in a way that has gotten us so far away from these ancient practices, these primal practices, and like to connect with the heart, to connect with the elements that are around us, nature's gifts, and like listen to what is speaking through us. Like that's our higher consciousness talking to us through the heart. And I think like there's a lot of the separation from that because we're so programmed to not be emotional and to not express our feelings, and like I see that with me, like and women, but like also like especially with men too, like especially with men, oh, you have to be tough, you have to be strong, don't express your feelings, and it just like has compounded over time, and you see it manifest in these ways of like disharmonious relationships and disharmonious relationships with self, and
it all starts there.
And it all starts here.
It's funny that you mentioned like the higher self and your heart space, because in human design they talk about the fact that you're G-centered. So you have your heart, and it's kind of on the body graph chart. It's off to the side. They call that the heart or the ego. But then the G center is like located right in the center, because they say that there's 9 energy centers now instead of 7, and this is the updated version. So that G center though is the direct connection to the higher self. So you just intuitively realize that, but yeah, it's actually
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You know, they say like there's like the heart chakra, and then like if you open your higher channels, if you become more in tune with those kinds of realms, there's the upper heart chakra, which is I believe they call it the thymus.
Yeah.
And so that's like the third eye of the heart.
The heart, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just like to feel, you can actually, like if it's activated, I actually like felt like a pain there in my body the other day. I'm like, whoa, like, what's that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the Heart Math, I think it's Heart Math Institute, but like Greg Braden also talks a lot about it. I've watched videos of him explaining it, where the intelligence in the heart, like there's a constant interaction between the heart and the brain, and we used to think that it's all about the brain, all about all your thoughts, all your intelligence is coming from here. But they realize now that the neurons there's not as many as in the brain, but there's a lot of neurons in the heart, and I think that it's connected to like the higher realms, and the brain is more of like to survive,
Right.
like in the 3D world kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot, because like sometimes if I feel like I get too much in my head, I decide to drop into my heart, like listen to what my heart is telling me, and it's not like, it's something that takes a lot of time to cultivate that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, well, what's my heart telling me? It's like a lot of us aren't even aware of that. So you first have to become aware of that, and then cultivate the relationship with the heart, so that you're like listening to it. So it's like whispering to you. You know, it's like whispering, these soft whispers, but it's speaking to us all the time.
And I think maybe part of the reason that it doesn't, you can't just go, what's my heart saying? And then it's just like screams at you. It's because it's trying to get you to come and be rooted back in the present moment, right?
Right.
It doesn't want to just like tell you what you need and then you go off and run around and do whatever else you're supposed to do. It's trying to get you to come back to now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times too when it's like maybe it doesn't feel that awesome. Yeah, it's like not that comfortable. So a lot of times maybe we will just like, oh, I'm not gonna go there right now because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But like truly to allow yourself to go there, listen to what the heart is telling you. It has so much clarity, it has so much wisdom to share. It's so wise. And then like allowing yourself to move through that, there's pure liberation on the other end. And it's like, it's just like this constant feedback loop.
Yep.
If you're willing to listen, and it's not easy. It's like can be really excruciating.
Oh yeah. Well, and you reminded me. There's another thing that Braden mentions about the heart, and that they think that the heart actually talks more to the brain than the brain does to the heart. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have to go back and listen to this.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find it and put it in the links to the episode, because I think it'd be good for anyone who wants to listen.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's like we're running around and our brains are always speaking to us. There's so much mental chatter.
Oh yeah.
But to come back to the present moment, it's like, oh, this is it.
Yep. Totally.
This is it. Like what happened yesterday doesn't matter. What's gonna happen tomorrow or even in an hour, like who's to say? It's all perfectly divinely orchestrated, and just like as long as we're living our life with integrity and aligned with our values and willing to be open to more love, like there's so much love, infinite love that the divine wants us to receive.
Yep.
And we can all receive all of it.
Yep. It's your birthright.
It's your birthright. Love is your birthright.
Yeah. It's amazing. So you mentioned some of the stuff, your tea ceremony, your tea meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You've done Wim Hof in the past, hot yoga. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share of things that have been beneficial for you?
I journal often. That's been really helpful for me to kind of get clarity on anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll just journal and just like write.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah, just like channeling.
Don't think about it.
I'm not thinking about it, just like whatever's coming out. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, did I even write this? Like, you know, it's just, but it's wisdom. It's straight up wisdom.
Yep.
I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. It's like getting past the mental chatter to have the real stuff come through.
Yeah, and to be able to like write it down and put it in kind of like whatever's coming through, wherever it's coming from, to have it in a physical manifestation.
Yep.
And then to be able to go back and like look at it, and it's like, whoa, like this is really good information that like I wrote for myself that I need to hear right now.
And the funny thing is I think like that can remind us that it's not just us. There's more to us, you know, so you realize you open yourself up to more than just that limited aspect of you.
Yeah, so that's you know, and that's like, it's interesting because there's so many times when I feel like we have these practices and we're like rigid in these practices, and sometimes it's like it'll come and go, and I found myself just kind of being like hard on myself. I'm not journaling a lot right now in this season, like what's up with that? But honoring that too, like honoring that all as part of the the process and the unfolding. And I think like the biggest reminder for me is just coming back to presence. Like that is the biggest practice in my life that I have been cultivating in like any moment. Just like it's like a skill, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's like any moment that my mind goes somewhere else, being able to recognize it and then bring myself back here.
It's almost like a muscle.
Yes.
And the more you do it, the stronger the muscle gets and the more it stays.
That's it. Yeah. It's definitely, it's a practice, and it's a lifelong practice. It's like,
and I mean, if there wasn't some of these challenges, like life would be kind of boring, you know? Like,
oh, I know.
Have you ever seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
So, you know, when Agent Smith talks about, it's like when he's got Morpheus hooked up and they're like trying to get the codes from Morpheus's brain towards the end of the movie, and then Neo and Trinity come and break him out, you know? But like Agent Smith is talking to him, he's like, you know, they set up the Matrix to have it be perfect so that you all didn't have to struggle, there were no challenges. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know.
Whatever.
But and he's like, and your mind rejected it, and that's why you have all this misery. And that's kind of like a darker side of looking at it, you know? It's really more so that you grow from the challenges. It's like a tire, like a wheel spinning in midair. It doesn't go anywhere. As soon as you put it on the ground and spin it, it moves, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and there's, you know, we crave variety as humans. It's like, no, I don't want just like vanilla ice cream all the time.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You know, we need these different kinds of experiences to gather different information about ourselves.
Yep.
And then when we have these challenges, if we're able to like look at them and face them head on, heart on, then there's so much growth to be had. And like it like I said earlier, just opens us up and expands us to more love. Like I can literally feel my heart stretching and expanding. And first, to like, you know, to really be able to feel all that love, we have to experience these challenges and like kind of go into the depths. And without the darkness, you know, we wouldn't be able to see a light. If we're just like wandering around in the light all the time, like great, but where's the contrast? Where, like, who am I in relation to this? You know, it's like there's so much to learn.
And the one thing that I've reminded myself of, though, is that don't get, like, because I feel like in the past there's been times where, like, the depression went on for so long that it feels like the norm, and then that can kind of make it harder to get out of it, you know what I mean? And so reminding myself that the depression is there to teach me something, and so instead of fighting it or just like kind of getting used to it and maybe too comfortable with it, like what is it here to teach me?
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, like it's there for the lessons, but your ultimate, like we were saying, your birthright is love. And so like when someone's in a depression, you listen to their speech, and a lot of it is me, my, I, you know, because you feel isolated from the rest of the world. That's part of the depression. And so by tuning in and listening, like, what is this depression trying to teach me? Ultimately, most of the time I feel like it's teaching you to love, to connect with other people, and to get out of this idea that, you know, it's me, myself, like, you know, against the world kind of thing, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all totally, completely quantumly entangled and interconnected, and I don't even like to label it depression anymore. Like I used to be in that state all the time. When I was younger, I used to like feel so alone in this, and there's so much darkness, but like to witness that as an aspect of reality, you know, it's like we all experience this kind of like wave, you know, it's always undulating. They're not going to come into these times where it feels so light and blissful and then not go back into a dark time. So it's like not being hooked into any certain type of experience, but like also allowing yourself to be in the darkness and knowing that it's teaching you something, like you said, like knowing that it's not, I don't have to be stuck here. It's like, just as being in the light, knowing that it's not going to be permanent. Like nothing is permanent in this life. Everything has a beginning, everything has an end.
Yeah.
Nothing is permanent. So like, if you open your heart to the more challenging aspects of life, then you can ask yourself, like, yeah, what is this teaching me? How can I embrace this instead of resisting it? Because like the resistance just like kind of makes it last longer. The fastest way out of that dark portal is through it.
Yep.
Fully embracing it and trusting that even if you feel blind in the dark, you can use your heart as a compass to guide your way through it.
And that's not like wishy-washy or, woohoo. That's like literally.
That's
like,
legit. Like, it's literally like that's how it is. Like, I have personally experienced this like so many times, and especially recently, just going into these dark places. And it's like now when I experience this, like I'm like, yes, like bring it on. I want to feel this because I know at the end of it is something even more magical. It's like the same hand that gives you this darkness is the hand that gives you light tenfold at the other end of it. And you just kind of, we don't know. I think that's where a lot of fear comes in. It's like, oh, what happens if I embrace this darkness? And is it gonna make it worse?
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like the mystery. Oh, but we get comfortable in these spaces of like, okay, well, I'm here now, so at least I can be comfortable here now, and I can resist what's coming towards me. But like, to be able to fully embrace whatever it is, whether it's darkness, whether it's light, whether it's bliss, whether it's agony, it's like that's living. That's like the aliveness of life. And
it's like a video game almost. Like if you just kept playing the same level and you never went, like if you beat a level and you just kept going back and playing that same level, you're not making any progress, you're not going anywhere, and eventually you would get tired of it, So it's like, take on that next challenge, go to that next level, and there is rewards at the end of it,
Yeah.
Better than just badges or different outfits on a video game, but like much more rewarding things in the real world, Nothing against video games, they're cool too.
Video games are great.
Yeah, for sure.
But just like learning, like you get to learn so much about yourself and like, what we create our own reality. So it's like, how do we want to create that reality? What do we want to infuse in that reality? And like, it's just ultimately love.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes you a better person, and if you ever want to have kids someday, it's going to make you a better parent going through all this stuff, going through these challenges and like learning from them. And then, if your kids are going through something similar, you can convey that to them instead of just like, quit bothering me with that.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
exactly. And like, we're in a time where we're really doing this work, like a lot of like our parents and like their parents, like they didn't have the same tools that we have today.
Exactly.
And so I feel like there's a lot of us that are aware of this, and we're really doing this work, and it's really powerful, and we're like healing our DNA. We're healing our ancestral DNA from years and years and years of this just being woven into our system. We're literally changing the structure of our DNA by healing this with ourselves. And sometimes like the things that we're feeling, it's just like generational, Sometimes it's not even our own.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like
I feel like a lot of times.
A lot of times it's not. A lot. And we have the power to change that, and I think by like a lot of us recognizing we have the power to change that, it's kind of hard to look away and say like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. It's like we're here to build a new earth, and it starts within.
Totally. So one thing I wanted to talk about with you, are you good on time? Okay. So one thing I wanted to bring up, and I want to discuss this more because I listened to a podcast, the Uncivilized podcast with Traver Boehm, and actually Fabiano was on a previous episode, I think episode 5 maybe, can't remember exactly, but he talked about breath work and different things that he's used. He had a men's like online like seminar kind of thing, and he had Traver Boehm on, and Traver has a pretty fairly successful podcast. I mean, he's written a couple of books. He's really in the space of self-development, self-empowerment.
Yeah.
And so he had a woman on a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks, I don't know, but pretty recently, and she was discussing a woman's cycle and how that, because the purpose of this podcast is to share with people things that can help them in their life.
Yeah.
So one thing that that I really am interested in learning more about is a woman's cycle, and then like how it plays out for them, and what taking the pill does to that whole process, and taking them out of their natural state, not feeling that cycle that is natural.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to speak about that at all.
Sure.
You don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because as you're sharing this, I'm thinking like there's just been so many layers over the course of time that have unfolded for me personally, and I'm sure for many, that it's like, oh, I learned this at this part of my journey, I learned this at this part. It's like not just like, okay, like one and done.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different aspects. So yeah, I was on birth control for years, like 10 or 12 years, since I was 15 or 16. And just like, that's just like how it was.
Most people,
that's
most
just
women.
like how it was. And then several years ago I learned that, hey, like maybe not the best thing. I was introduced to like holistic. I've always kind of been holistic, but just recognizing that like there are other ways, and tracking the cycle and being in tune with the body, and just to have like artificial hormones being put in your body and like circulated through your bloodstream for 12 years, like imagine what that does to the system.
Totally.
And I don't like to take any medications. I'm an herbalist, so like I use all natural when I can, and every pharmaceuticals have their time and place, of course, but to be on something that is like so disruptive to the system, and the feminine cycle is like, that's I have found like the deepest way that I am in tune with my body. Like it's every day is different, because there's different layers, there's different levels of hormones in the body. So every single day it's like, okay, where am I? And it's like the womb is the portal of life.
Yeah.
So it's literally the portal. It's like it's the divine feminine cosmic portal. Yeah. And there's so many aspects that go along with it. There's when you're on birth control, you actually have, there's like less of an understanding of what you want out of a partner. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of women who will go off birth control and they're like, oh, actually I'm not into my husband, or I'm not into my partner, or like, then you realize because your pheromones are different and their pheromones are different, it's like inhibiting these certain parts of you. So it doesn't allow you to be fully in tune with yourself.
I've actually, and I think they might have mentioned it on a podcast, or maybe I heard it somewhere else, that it's part of the reason that they think it's contributing, like the pill is contributing to a lot of disruption, but it's one of the things it's contributing to is it's I don't want to say making women, but it's women tend to gravitate towards men that they normally wouldn't gravitate towards, and unhealthy patterns in men. And what women gravitate towards, like men respond to that, and then there's a kid back home, and he was like, I met him when he was like 18 or 19. He was helping me like with another guy doing landscaping, and he was a more like kind of innocent kid, and over the last few years, he's kind of changed, and so he has this like, for lack of a better term, fuckboy kind
Sure.
of mentality, you know, and the way that he talks about women, the way that he kind of treats them, from what I've seen at a distance, you know, it's partly because if I feel like if women are on the pill and it's screwing with all that, then it's almost turning you more like a man, right? It's like trying to. They talk about this on the podcast.
Interesting.
That it's creating this linear hormonal state. So instead of going through the 4
Right.
seasons of your cycle, you're staying in summer. So you're ready to go out, you know, every weekend. You're ready to, you know, sleep with
Yeah.
like a lot of different people,
That makes
which
sense.
tends to not be the healthiest thing, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot of like was a big contributing factor too to a lot of my like sadness
Yeah.
in my life, and just like being so disconnected from my own body.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different experience to be in tune with the different layers and the different levels and the different aspects of the cycle.
Yeah.
It's versus just like almost like masking it
Yeah.
in a way from I mean that's exactly what's happening. It's preventing the body from doing what the body does best. And like as women, we are this portal to the divine, you know, like the divine feminine is like this conduit where we are able to tap into these deeper ethereal realms. And it's, you know, there's a lot of talk about the womb space. Like the womb has its own heart, the womb has its own experience of life. Like when I talk about listening to my heart, like I also listen to my womb.
Yeah.
Because it speaks, it's wise, it has its own intelligence. And so I can't imagine being so tapped into that intelligence with the hindrance
Right.
of something like the pill.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of things that we weren't told, and it's liberating to just like have full control over my own body.
Yeah. And so when you came off of it, was there, like we've been talking, challenges? There might have probably been some challenges. Things got a little more uncomfortable when you were coming off of it, and maybe that's kind of a deterrent for a lot of women too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, my life changed a lot. Like I ended things with my partner at the time,
Yeah.
and it was definitely a huge life shift.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I wouldn't have it any other way, because I don't want this like artificial, you know, chemical or some substance in my body and in my being telling me how to live my life, or hindering me from my own self-awareness.
Well, in learning about your cycle, and then understanding that like you can't get pregnant 30 out of 30 days of the month. That's just not how it works.
Right, it's a very small window,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
And there are actually a lot of other natural modalities that you can do.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, like there's wild carrot seed, also known as Queen Anne's lace. It's like a natural birth control. It's
What?
herbs, yeah, and like you can take it as a tincture, or as a woman, you can take it as a tincture.
Yeah.
It works really well. I mean, of course, like tracking your cycle
Sure.
as well, and
Well,
being responsible in that way. But
and you don't have to do it every day. I mean,
no,
you know, what I mean, you can take a break.
you can take a break. Yeah, there are a lot of things out there that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, the birth control industry is like makes a lot of money for big pharma. So, of course, you know, it's going to be pushed, but there are definitely ways. And as a woman in tune with my body, in tune with my cycles, I'm able to know and tell if there's something that's off,
Yeah.
because I listen to my body, and like I'm able to listen to my body.
Yeah.
So it's really just like being super mindful, and of course, tracking the cycle. And it can be useful in ways that's not just like preventing pregnancy. It's very useful. It's like, oh, this is where I am in my cycle. It makes sense that I'm experiencing these things it makes sense that I'm feeling really emotional right
Yeah.
now, because sometimes it's like there's this whole like a stigma, oh, like women are crazy kind of thing. That's been a big story that has been told for a long time, and sometimes I have felt that in my life. It's like, why am I so emotional right now? Oh, it makes sense because I'm at this point in my cycle, and now that I know that and I recognize that, I can take the next steps. I'm just gonna stay in tonight. I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna watch a movie and honor myself in that way.
Yes.
It's like whatever I need, I know that I can give myself, so long as I'm listening to what I need.
Yeah.
And the body talks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like having the volume like turned down to 3.
Exactly.
And you can kind of hear it maybe a little bit, but yeah. One thing they mentioned on that podcast too, on Civilized podcast, he talked about how it was, because the podcast is mainly designed for men, and he was saying how like this can help you to understand your partner better, so that you're not like, when she's in her winter part of her cycle, and you want to go out, your friends are inviting you guys to go out, and she doesn't really feel like going out, you're not going to pester her and like pressure her into wanting to go out when she doesn't want to go out. It's honoring like where she's at, and having respect for that. I think part of it's because like men and women, we've had this battle going on for as long as we know, pretty much, the battle of the sexes kind of thing. And it's like this misconception that we have to be at war in order to create polarity. But there's a healthy version of polarity. Like you can have polarity without having to be constantly at war, And so I feel like part of the reason for the pill, I think there's a lot of reasons for the pill, but like it was that women were like, for lack of a better term, oppressed and like made to feel lesser than, and so women themselves didn't totally understand their own cycle, especially in the Western world. And so then if they're not understanding it, and then the men are definitely not even going to try to understand it, because I remember growing up, it was like, oh, it's weird, like it's gross, that kind of thing. And well, it's part of how you got here. So I mean,
it's a literal creation.
Yeah, right. So and but what I was going to say was basically like by understanding all of that, now we understand why we kind of did it, and we can choose to go in a different direction. And it's not like, okay, if women stop taking the pill, all the 13-year-olds in the world are going to get pregnant. Like, no, it's about knowledge and teaching your children what it's all about and like how to navigate it, rather than like just having a 3-minute birds and bees conversation that you didn't want to have, neither one of you wanted to have it, and then just like fucking figure it out yourself,
Yeah, well, that we're in a time where we are opening up to speaking with more authenticity and more truth and like more intention, versus just like, oh, here's the thing that feels uncomfortable, or like there's with the discomfort there's fears behind it.
Right.
So it's like allowing ourselves to like face our fears and to be vulnerable, even if it feels uncomfortable. It's like, because it can be felt, it's definitely felt, but like that just allows space for more truth, and it's organic, it's the natural unfolding. And so to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations with our kids or something, it's like, that's the way of truth, that's the way of love. And I think we're coming back to these places, like we're coming back to these states which our ancestors were using these ways of communication, and it's a deeper sense of connection, it's a deeper sense of presence, and a deeper connection with source consciousness.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what we're doing.
Yep. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this thing, is to share this stuff, and then people can take some of it and do their own research, figure out what works for them, and just kind of level up.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how much there is to learn from anyone.
Yeah.
Really.
The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything.
There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn. Infinite. And like through the reflections of one another, we get to learn so much about ourselves. And it's like, that's priceless, you know? Relationships are everything. That's what's the point of life without that? And so why mask that with things that feel false or things that aren't super authentic? Why would we mask that? If we are vulnerable, if we are authentic and staying true to our heart and expressing that to the people that are around us in our everyday life, even if that creates tension, even if that creates discomfort, that's the truth within your heart, that you will have the pure truth reflected back to you in your external reality.
And I mean, if you're sharing the truth, whether it's uncomfortable or not, like it's I mean, you don't want to like say something that's going to hurt someone necessarily, like, but if it's something that needs to come out, having the courage to say it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and there's a healthy level of integrity and compassion, of course, but with speaking your truth from that authentic place of like, hey, like I want harmony, and I desire love. Like, love it doesn't always look like rainbows and flowers. Sometimes it looks like making someone else upset, not purposefully, but people will get triggered, like people will get uncomfortable, tension is created in spaces, and then a growth on the other end of that. So it's like kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a huge part of this, and I talked about this in a previous episode with Aaron Powers, is empathy. The power of empathy. So you might be feeling a certain way based on something that someone said or did to you, but to try to see it, and then the flip side too, trying to see and feel how the other person feels in their situation, and why they're reacting the way they are, or why they're saying what they're saying. And when you can truly start to embody that empathy, it sheds light on the whole thing, and it can help diffuse that tension.
Yeah, it just like can become a part of who you are. And there's so many things too that we don't know about people and their background and what is making them express themselves this way. You know, anything that comes up as tension is just like, it's a projection of their own personal experiences. So if we can just hold everyone in the light of unconditional love in every conversation, sure, it's way easier said than done.
For sure.
But to just come back to that practice over and over again until it just like becomes who we are.
Strengthen that muscle.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think empathy, especially because you mentioned like you might not know where the other person's coming from, but if you're talking like relationships, you get to know a person pretty well, you know. Right. So to keep having these same battles and these same fights over the same thing, obviously there's not empathy going on. But like if you get to know a person, you know them pretty well, and you're in a committed relationship with them, it should be easier to have empathy because you know what they've gone through, you know.
Exactly. And just to just to be able to hold people in the highest light, in their highest version, because we're all changing, we're all growing.
Totally.
And there's a timeline out there where we are our ideal version of ourselves.
Right. It
exists. So to be able to like see somebody and know that, yeah, I can see that you can exist on this timeline and in this reality, and like we can bridge that together and we can exist there together in any relationship. Sure. It's like that's powerful because you get to, you know, maybe hold that light for someone who has a hard time holding it for themselves, and in turn then it just like it gets cycled back into you because you get to hold that light for yourself as well. Mm-hmm. We're all just reflections of one another.
Totally. I feel like this has been a really, really good. It's beneficial. Thank you.
I feel good. Thank you. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. So I think it feels like a good place to stop. What do you think?
It feels complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been another episode of Master of Zilch. I hope you got something out of this because I know I did. So, yeah. Share, like, subscribe, all those things. Rate the podcast. It helps with the algorithms and getting it out there more. I'm going to be creating flyers to try to spread the word more, because there are millions of podcasts these days. But thank you guys for choosing this one, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And this is kind of a thing that I'm trying to do now is you are your own Messiah. You can save yourself. And I just want you to know that I believe in you, and I know you can do it, even if no one else does. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Danielle.